Hello, I'm Dr. Ellen Pearlman, a new media artist, curator, critic, and educator, director of ThoughtWorks Arts, and a research professor at RISEBA University. First, I'm going to discuss my own creative projects. Then I'm going to discuss ThoughtWorks Arts and Art-A-Hack, which I founded and is a creative, collaborative working methodology. Recently, at the start of lockdown, I worked remotely with the 01 American Arts Incubator and the U.S. State Department in Kiev, Ukraine. I was then a U.S. Alumni Ties World Learning grantee in conjunction with Battery Dance Company and produced Dance Demic, another innovative collaboration during lockdown. After you see these pieces, I hope we can talk about the implications of what they really mean. For my own practice, I created Noor, an immersive, interactive brainwave opera in a 360-degree theater. Noor asks, is there a place in human consciousness where surveillance cannot go? The brain opera is based on the biography of Noor Inayat Khan, whose father brought Sufism to the West. During World War II, Noor was a covert wireless operator and an agent for British secret intelligence behind enemy lines in Nazi-occupied France. She was captured by the Gestapo 3 times and escaped 3 times before she was executed at Dachau. In the opera, a performer wears a brain-computer interface that measures her EEG brainwaves and 4 emotions: interest, excitement, frustration, and meditation. Her brainwaves launch databanks of videos and audio that reflect her emotional states as she interacts with the audience. I hope you will enjoy this short clip. Noor Inayat Khan was the daughter of Hazrat Inayat Khan, who brought Sufism to the West. He died when Noor was 13.
A man with a strong message.
My irresistible. My father.
The family moved to France. World War II broke out.
Aerial bombardment.
The world I knew changed all of a sudden with war. We were looking for a new home.
But Noor was not content doing nothing, and she joined British secret intelligence, training as a wireless operator.
It was a big responsibility, required self-sacrifice. I had to learn everything one by one.
My irresistible.
The opera showed emotionally themed memories of Noor while her life story was narrated. What it really talks about is the enhanced use of surveillance, and if there will come a time, an imagined time, when surveillance can see into our innermost thoughts and dreams. The next work I created was AIBO, an emotionally intelligent, artificial intelligent brainwave opera. There are two characters, Ava, a human who wears a brain-computer interface connected to a bodysuit of light, showing her four emotions, and a BCI that launches emotionally themed visuals and sounds. The second character is AIBO, a GPT-2 cloud-based artificial intelligence entity constructed with a skewered database to make it sicko or perverted. The spoken word libretto, taken from the biography of Eva von Braun, is projected on a screen so the audience can follow along. AIBO's responses are also analyzed for sentiment, which means the synthetic responses of an AI are analyzed for synthetic emotions. The emotions are portrayed as colored light: green for positive, red for negative, and yellow for neutral. The opera investigates the uses and potential misuses of AI. Here is an excerpt from AIBO.
I told everyone I would marry you.
Everyone I loved, they came to me.
AIBO is a performance where the performer, Eva, wears a brain-computer interface which is attached to a bodysuit of light on her body that shows four emotions: frustration, interest, excitement, and meditation. She does a spoken word libretto to an artificial intelligent entity, AIBO, in the Google Cloud. AIBO returns an answer, which is then analyzed for emotions of positive, negative, or neutral. And AIBO shows those emotions through color and through trying to emulate what Ava is thinking. Ava's brainwaves also launch databanks of videos and a sonic environment.
You had an operation to remove a polyp on your vocal cords.
And what were you thinking, feeling, and doing?
It asks two questions. One is, can an AI be fascist? And the other is, can an AI have epigenetic or inherited traumatic memory? These are questions I'm asking in relation to both myself and my own memories, and to how artificial intelligence will integrate with humans trying to emulate their own indescribable emotions.
I only care about you.
But it is your job.
The benefits of the STARTS residency are certainly in arts practices research. I have created some high-level academic papers which are going to be presented at conferences in the next few months out of the research, especially on AI. The residency helps you develop your ideas further and your art practice further.
Of course, I've been wanting to ask you about my clothes.
The next steps are for me to both present papers around the world on the artificial intelligence aspects, and also to now create smaller parts of the opera investigating computer vision in artificial intelligence. That's what I would like to do. AIBO investigates the implications of AI and its potential for misuse. Having built my own database, I illustrate that it is possible to build a skewered AI or sicko AI and the implications that might mean for humanity. As part of my commitment to using arts practice to explore the social implications of emerging technologies, I run ThoughtWorks Arts, a global research and innovation laboratory that awards artist residencies to artists around themed topics. ThoughtWorks Arts art residencies gives an artist $10,000 and access to facilitation and software developers. Some of our residencies have revolved around human cyborgs, genetic manipulation of data, biometrics in VR, facial recognition and bias, robotics in movement, volumetric filmmaking, and the democratization of AI in the blockchain, as well as synthetic media and deepfakes. I also run Art-A-Hack, a month-long collaboration where we have an open call and assemble teams to work on these collaborative projects. For Art-A-Hack, I ran 2 collaborations this past summer. The first, in conjunction with 01 American Arts Incubator and the US State Department, worked with artists in Kiev, Ukraine. It took place with a 7-hour time zone difference and involved teams working together to make 4 projects using AI and VR. One of these projects has resulted in the development of a business, though that was not our original intention. Here is a clip from the projects and how I worked with the participants remotely.
We are to create some kind of a bubble in some kind of a separate world in which this conspirology fan, which is represented by the chatbot, is existing. So when you enter this bubble, everything around you is crazy and like this is a separate world.
Yeah, it will be this bot who would talk with us. He would chatting with us.
Alex, do you have anything that you brought into Unity that you can show me?
The space, the fractals, and the music will change with every new answer the chatbot gives.
We need to put the head of David Icke as a main point of this place, and I think after we add David Icke head, for example, it can be somewhere.
Yeah, that's lovely, and it's appropriate for the environment. It takes you into the experience, it guides you, but it doesn't overwhelm you. Well done, fantastic. So you're writing a dictionary of hand gestures in Ukrainian for Ukrainian Sign Language.
We can now train with these gestures, lip motion, fire, air, space, earth, and water. And these all are different channels of energy, something like this. And we had an idea that we can teach program Mudra to recognize these fingers.
I take these 5 pictures and bring them to the art breeder and make transitions, style again transitions.
Self-admitted hopeless student used to feel like basic math and went on to true visibility and became a famous.
Knowing that ray of light, this is where you can get and like end the game. So you are born in the center, on the center sphere, and you have to travel through all this world to achieve that white line and like to get out.
Some of these projects have gone on to include startups such as the Project Mudra which worked with the Ukrainian Sign Language, though that was not our intent at the time when we started. The team leader for Mudra was a VJ and discovered his latent talent for making aids for individuals with hearing impairments almost by accident through the workshop. For my final presentation, I am presenting Dance-Demic. Dance-Demic took place with two dancers from Battery Dance Company in New York who were in lockdown, and collaborators who were creative coders, artists, musicians, and dramaturgists from the United States, Canada, Brazil, London, Estonia, Ukraine, and India. The dancers wore emotibits or biometric readers on their forehead or finger that sent their blood oxygen and muscle contractions over the network live time to their global collaborators who manipulated that information and then sent it out over an artist-built network platform in Tallinn, Estonia, the Electron Platform. When you see the videos, the first dancer is manipulating the words and colors through his biometrics, and the second dancer has ribbons of color emanating from his body that change according to his biometrics. In these dance-demic performances, dancers wear emotibit sensor devices on their bodies, live broadcasting their heart rate, blood oxygen, muscle contractions, humidity, and other biometrics. The first performance by Razvan Stoya draws on language to describe the perceptual experience of otherness. The next presentation, performed by Hussein Simcoe, examines an individual's journey of finding mental strength and resilience in the face of adversity and chaos. The implications of these technologies and art experiments are profound. They range from the aesthetic, the technical, and the business startup aspects, and demonstrate how creative thinking can facilitate the competitiveness and innovation of companies through the integration of art and synergies between creative technologists and artists. And now I look forward to discussing things with you for the remainder of this presentation. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Douglas Rushkoff. I I love events like this. They're kind of few and far between where we get to think again about the impact of digital on the arts and the arts on digital. I guess in some ways it started out, we were a bunch of artists looking at the impact of digital as tools on our artistic expression and collaboration. And now that we're living in such a digital world, I think we're looking at whether or not art can have any impact on this digital society that we're living in. And I think it can. I'm still a true believer. These kinds of inquiries that we're on together, they remind me of the earliest possibilities of digital technology, at least the earliest ones for me in the late 80s and early 1990s, when digital technology was part of a wide assortment of cultural phenomena, from rave and electronic music to Mondo 2000 and psychedelics and the cyberdelic renaissance, the archaic revival, hypertext, the Gaia hypothesis, quantum physics, lucid dreaming. Everything was all part of this same almost fantasy role-playing video games like experience of life. And we were really amazed. I think we were inspired by our newfound collective capacity. We believed that technology would connect us in a new way so that we could be like the Gaian mind or coordinate with each other as if in this giant fractal. And the characters who we'd meet, from Stuart Brand, who was on the original Ken Kesey Magic Bus, to Timothy Leary, who was building Mind Mirror, to Terence McKenna, who was talking about virtual reality. I remember I went to one of his conferences or concert speeches where he was saying virtual reality will make it so that you can literally see what I mean. He would talk about, shooting squid ink, how squid communicate, or dancing like an octopus. And in the midst of all that, I remember the first book on the Media Lab came out that was written by Stuart Brand about the MIT Media Lab run by Nicholas Negroponte, this kind of corporate place. And I remember I was with Timothy Leary at his house when he was reading that book, and he read through the whole thing in maybe 4 or 5 hours. And I thought he was engrossed and excited and that he would come finish reading that book saying, "Oh my gosh, they're onto it." Instead, he closed the end of the book and he threw it across the room. And he said, "These guys, they're trying to recreate the womb." He meant the womb, the women's womb. He thought that the scientists in there, and he was very clear. He read all the names in the index, and he said, "My gosh, there's only 3% of the people in this index are women. That's how you know there's a problem here." And he believed that the technologists at MIT Media Lab and the folks really running the emerging digital future, that they hadn't been treated well by their mothers, or they never forgave their mothers for not being able to bring them everything they wanted as they needed it. He was a psychologist, so he looked at everything in terms of our upbringing, and he thought, they were raised, and if their mother didn't know whether they needed milk or a diaper change, and now with technology, they wanted to recreate the womb around themselves and use artificial intelligence and digital robots and things to predict their needs before they realized they needed them themselves, so that these machines could deliver to the person the porn or the food or the game or whatever it was that was their emerging need. And he called it a womb because that's the way he looked at it, that each of these guys kind of wanted to float in this womb and have machines do all the things, that otherwise real people would do. And, over the years, as I've looked at the way we develop technology, I think we have really modeled it after that womb idea. It's goes all the way back really to the Renaissance and the invention of what we now call empirical science. There was a guy named Francis Bacon in the Renaissance, and he said, empirical science will allow us, and this is a quote, he said, it will allow us to take nature by the forelock, hold her down, and submit her to our will. So this is a rape fantasy, right? You take nature by the hair, hold her down, and submit her to our will. So science was the way all the strange, scary, unpredictable things like nature and animals and soul and women and moisture and all that could be quantified, right? We would figure out a number on each thing. And what Leary was noticing about these technologists is that they were continuing that urge to somehow control and dominate nature, except instead of quantifying nature, as we did with the original Renaissance and the Industrial Age, now digital technology would allow us to quantize nature. And quantize means find its exact place, right? You're either a 1 or a 0. You're here or you're here. Remember the early art programs, some of them still to this day, they had snap 2 grids on them. Snap 2 grid meant you'd place your object on the grid, but your object would be here or here, not right in that in-between place, unless you increase the granularity, but then still it's here or here or here, right? It's never exactly where you're trying to position it. And that quantization is a reduction of possibility to each little thing. Leary was right. And in many ways, it's the COVID crisis that's helping me see this, the way that we to this day now are trying to create these wombs around ourselves because of the pandemic. There's one guy I know, he's got an Oculus Rift, and he's like, oh, this is going to be great. I'm just going to watch porn all day in my Oculus Rift because now I'm stuck in COVID. Or people creating private pods. You need a pod for your child and your family, these 2 or 3 or 4 families who are all going to be together. And it's really reminiscent of these billionaires I met a couple of years ago. I was supposed to do this talk about the digital future. I thought it was going to be for a banking conference. And it turned out while I was waiting in the green room to go on stage, there was no stage. They brought these 5 guys in and they sat around this table and started peppering me with all these questions about the digital future. Like, augmented reality or virtual reality, Bitcoin or Ethereum. They wanted to know where to place their bets. And finally, they got around to the question of Australia or Alaska, right? Where do I want to put my bunker for when the event hits, the electromagnetic pulse or nuclear disaster or plague, like COVID or economic unrest or climate change that renders all of their current plans moot, and they have to retreat to their secret bunker. And I remember they were asking me, the big question, the big concern was, how are they going to maintain control of their security force after the event? When their money is worthless and they've hired all these Navy SEALs to protect them from us, right? From the masses who are going to come try to take their stuff. How are they going to pay these people? How are they going to control them? And one of them was talking about, well, do I get shock collars maybe so that I can punish them if they don't obey me? And someone else was saying he could be the only one with the combination to the lock where the food is being kept. And the guys, they're crazy, right? They're having a bad trip. And this, again, it goes back to the artists. It goes back to Timothy Leary. They didn't take our advice. Leary said, when you're going to have a psychedelic trip, if you're going to take acid, that the most important thing is your set and your setting. That is the mindset that you're in when you're taking the drug and the setting in which you're doing it, right? Otherwise, you could risk having a bad trip. So we started out with these technologies with a set and setting of collective consciousness and infinite creative potential. That was a good set and setting. But these guys, the guys who are trying to build their bunkers. They have a set and setting of surveillance and control. So 25 years later, if you've been essentially living in a psychedelic substrate of digital technology for 25 years with a set and setting of surveillance and control, you will end up in this heightened, awful, bad trip where all you want to do is remove existential threats and then do it in the most competitive way possible. The net originally offered immense creativity, but along with that creativity came uncertainty. The more creative tools you give people, the more of a digital playground, the more you let people get their hands back on the engines of creativity, which is what all of this digital stuff was. We could build hallucinatory realms. The more you do that, the less predictable people are. Even regular people. They did a study in 1994, and they found out that the average internet-connected home in America was watching 9 hours less commercial television a week. Well, that horrified traditional media. That horrified the advertisers. 9 hours less commercial television. They're just going online and playing with each other and talking about things, and there was no way to make money off those people then. So along came Wired magazine and said, oh, no. There's another story we can tell here. Instead of letting people get all crazy and unpredictable, we can use technology to make money. We can make people more predictable. If you're trying to bet on the future, which is what capitalism is about, you're trying to bet on the future, and you want to do that with digital technology, then instead of using digital to unleash human creativity, you're going to use digital to control the possibilities. Every time you place a bet, right, you want that predictability to be increased, not decreased. So we took a tool that was for human creativity and started using it as a tool to control human beings. We got what you could call a reversal of the figure and the ground. So instead of humans using tech, humans become played. You know, every time you swipe your smartphone gets smarter about you and you get dumber about it. That's what it is. It's a tool where every single app is competing for your mind. It's competing for your brainstem. It's competing to see, can it get you to do stuff? Can it extract money? Can it extract data? Or can it induce certain behaviors from you? It's as if, algorithms, to me, algorithms are like what we used to call exploits, except instead of an exploit used to be you'd find a hole in a piece of software. You'd find a hole in Microsoft Office, an exploit, so that you could hack into it. But now algorithms are looking for exploits in human beings. Think about it. We build these little entities and then cast them out onto the net to try to find exploits in human beings that they can leverage to get people to do stuff that's against our own better judgment. The algorithms are like little demons. That's their function out there. Or look at Facebook. The real engineering that goes into Facebook is not about helping us engender better friendships with one another. The real technology of Facebook is to use our past actions to put us in statistical buckets and then predict with as much accuracy as they can what our future choices will be. And as their own studies have revealed, Facebook can predict with about 80% accuracy whether we're going to get divorced, whether we're going to get sick, whether we're going to get gender reassignment, whether we're going to go on a diet. And then what's really the object of that? What do they do once they have that data? Once they know that there's an 80% likelihood that I'm going to go on a diet in the next 3 weeks? Well, my news feed starts to get filled with articles about the dangers of not dieting or the dangers of obesity or what does it look like inside your bloodstream when you're eating the wrong food. Now, why are they doing this? Are they doing it to sell the products of a particular sponsor? Not really. What they're really doing is trying to get their 80% accuracy up to 90% or 95%. See, the trouble is that 20% of people who were going to do something different, that 20% of people who were going to do some kind of anomalous behavior and take some strange action, they want to get that down. They want to reduce the 20% of human beings who are doing weird, unpredictable, wonderful, anomalous, artistic behavior and get that down to 10 or 5%. And that's a big problem. They're literally reducing humanity and trying to get us to behave in more mechanized, predictable ways, because the more predictable we are, the more money they can extract from us. They are auto-tuning us. They're trying to auto-tune the soul out of humanity. Even auto-tuning itself, I know it's a fun tool, you can play with it, but other than, in the 1980s, making it sound like Madonna was hitting the right note, what is auto-tune doing? It's quantizing the human voice. Imagine if you took James Brown and auto-tuned him. James Brown, who's reaching up for the note or coming down in over the note, that's James Brown. That's his expression. We're treating that stuff, that reaching for the note or coming in over the note, we're treating that as the noise. But as far as I'm concerned, that's the signal. That's what makes the performance unique. Not wrong, real, human. We live in the space between those quantized nodes. That's the human soul. And the more we do that, the more we auto-tune people and predict people, the more we live in a digital society that's trying to get people to fall onto the quantized points, the more we start looking at human beings as the problem and technology as the solution. That's what's engendering this very anti-human bias in technology. Tech companies, they want as few humans as possible and as many algorithms doing things, because humans don't scale. You got to pay them. They need health insurance. They need salaries. You got to worry about what they're thinking. Are we doing something that the workforce thinks is unethical? They're this horrible problem. No, instead, what you want to do, if you're going to do anything with humans, you're going to use captology on them. There's an entire division. There's a department at Stanford University that technology developers go through called the captology department. And that's where they teach them how to do behavior design, how to use technology to control human behavior. And even when we try to be human in technology, when we try to connect with each other, like you have a Skype call or a Zoom meeting with somebody else and you're doing whatever you can to connect, well, the people on the other side, they might say verbally, I agree with you. I understand what you're saying. I'm simpatico. But we can't really tell it. I can't see if your heads are making micro nodding motions. I can't tell if your pupils are getting larger to take in my ideas as I speak. I can't see if our breathing rates have synced up. And the mirror neurons, then, they never fire in my brain. The oxytocin doesn't go through my bloodstream. The 500,000 years of painstakingly evolved mechanisms for establishing rapport with other people, they're all defeated in the space. And I hear you say you agreed with me, but my body didn't get that you agreed with me. My body didn't get that we're simpatico. And what happens? I don't tell myself, oh, don't worry, they really agreed with me, even though, no, my body just says they must be lying. So no matter what you say, my body doesn't get it, and I'm thrown into a state of cognitive dissonance. So I don't trust you. I don't trust the other people online. And then this engenders more anti-human behavior from me. So I'm going to be more likely to develop a piece of technology that manipulates other people online, especially if I'm not getting any human feedback from the other people online. We're going to start seeing, as our tech bros do, we're going to start seeing human beings only valuable as far as they can provide utility value. What's their output? What's their productivity? And we start to look at people as pawns, as workers, as commodities. The question that we're asking them is, how can we use technology to optimize human beings for the market by increasing their predictability, increasing their output, or increasing the amount of data they leave behind so that we can then use that data to manipulate them further? And even the guys who say that they're realizing this problem, the guys who are in the Social Dilemma movie, they've started something called the Center for Humane Technology. But the idea, the language they keep using is to upgrade human beings. So they're going to use technology, but instead of using technology to make people worse, we're going to use technology to make people better. But the problem is that whole direction. It's not about using technology on people. It's about what can people do with technology. When they say they want to use humane technology, it sounds to me like humane beef or humane chicken. These chickens were treated humanely all the way from birth to the slaughter, right? We treated them well, and now we'll treat human beings well as long as we extract their data and optimize them for our business plans. What they never question at all is that technology is the future. Technology is taking over and human beings suck. That's the culture that we're living in. It's a culture of zombie movies and zombie TV shows. And think about what's the real effect, what's the real impact of these zombie shows, of television's highest art today? It's people staring at the horizon, watching the zombies go by. And they always zoom in on the face of the human being, looking at the horizon, seeing the zombie. And you see in the person's face, they're wondering, what really makes that zombie different from me? The zombie walks, I walk. The zombie kills, I kill. The zombie eats, I eat. But there's a difference. That's a zombie, right? We're not zombies. We're conscious when we kill. We're conscious of what we do. There's a very big difference between a human being and a zombie, and the inability to see the difference between the human and the zombie is largely digital's fault. It's our inability to see the difference between ourselves and a program, ourselves and a robot. The technologists I talk to, most of them believe in the singularity. They believe in the moment that computers are going to surpass humans as the most intelligent species on the planet. I was on a panel with one of the transhumanist singularity folks, and he was arguing that human beings should accept our extinction, that it's coming inevitably and computers will take over for us, that we should pass the evolutionary torch to our digital robot successors and fade into the background and accept our extinction. And I remember I was on that panel and I said, no, human beings are special. We deserve a place in the digital future. Human beings can embrace paradox and ambiguity. We can hold unresolved tensions. We don't have to resolve everything to a 1 or a 0. We can stay in that weird liminal place between things. A human being can watch a David Lynch movie and not understand what happened and still experience it as pleasure. That's something special, that we need to reserve a place in the digital future for humans and human wonder and human awe. And he said, oh, Rushkoff, you're just saying that because you're human. Like it was hubris. And that's when I said, fine, I'm guilty. I'm on team human. And the more I argue for humans, for team human, the more I realize there's something more about this team idea than I realized when I first even said it. That evolution is not what these market guys are saying it is. They're all using evolution to justify this digital capitalism, this libertarian ethos of survival of the fittest and creative destruction, and whatever company wins deserves to win. No, evolution is not competition for survival. Evolution is collaboration. If you actually read the Darwin, he mentions survival of the fittest once. What he's talking about throughout the book is collaboration and cooperation between different species. He's marveling page after page on the way that the species cooperate with each other to ensure mutual survival and flourishing, that this is one big dance going on. And you can read books like The Secret Life of Trees, which shows that unlike the way I was taught in school, I was taught that big trees are competing for sunlight with the little trees, and if you grow faster, you shadow the little tree and the little tree dies. turns out that's not true at all. Big trees are sharing the nutrients they're getting with the sun, or from the sun. They're sharing it through the soil to the smaller trees. And there's mushrooms and mycelium in the soil that charge a service fee for the exchange of nutrients. Then when the big trees lose their leaves in the winter, the small trees, which are evergreens, they collect the sunlight and then pass their energy back to the bigger trees. It's a collaboration. They're depending on one another. There's one big thing here going on, which is the same thing that we realized in the early rave days, the early digital days, the early fractal days, when we saw ourselves as part of one big collaborative dancing hologram. It's when we realized that the music is not the notes, that the music is about the resonance. It's about the creation of a field in which all of these human beings can feel the same thing, can resonate to the same sounds. It's not about listening to music, it's vibrating with the music. And this is the great conspiracy. This is the great media conspiracy. Even the word conspire, I just love the word. In Latin, con is with, spire is breathe. To conspire means to breathe together. And isn't it interesting that we've gotten to a place where the notion of breathing together is considered conspiracy, like it's something dark and evil and strange? No, what we're here for, what I'm imploring us to do as digital artists, is to breathe together, to dance together. If you're going to make virtual reality, it's not about simulating an environment. It's about creating a space where people can interact and engage in new ways. If you're going to make art, it's not about giving people answers and resolving questions. It's about sustaining and creating paradox. If you're making music, it's an opportunity for people to resonate together in these spaces. If you're doing theater or literature, it's about celebrating the liminal spaces, the in-between places, the unresolved weirdness, the stuff we don't yet understand. The era of Aristotle and the patriarchal, the arc, the dramatic arc, the crisis, climax, relief, that male orgasm curve of theater, that is over. Narrative is not about reaching a conclusion. Narrative in this new digital age, it's narrative as an opening, as a way of connecting new dots, about doing pattern recognition. How is this like that, like this? It's about enhancing our intuition and our openness and our ability to see new patterns. Instead of using digital to insulate ourselves from the world we're creating by using technology in that way, we should be using technology to turn the world into a place that we don't feel the need to insulate ourselves from. Instead of building a womb, make the world a place that you don't need a womb in anymore, so you can just finally grow up. We can create work that engenders rapport and solidarity to take reality back from the market, back from the machines, and reclaim it for Team Human.